we go back again with another episode of the Around the Show Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle Showalter, and tonight I am joined by Brandon Mills on the left and Christian Hosfeld on the right. This is our AL preview, so we're going to be previewing both the American League in this episode and then the National League in the following episode. We're going to go division by division, figure out where we're going to rank these guys in the standings, who's going to break out, what are our MVPs for both leagues going to be. Christian's cracking open a Red Bull. We got a lot of recording to do. Real quick, before we jump in, though, fellas, how we doing? Brandon, welcome back. It's good to see you again. Christian,
what's going on?
Just saw you last
welcome
night,
back, Brandon.
But good to have you back. How we doing tonight, guys?
I'm doing good, man. Excited for this baseball season to roll around.
So excited for, what is it, Thursday?
Yep.
I'm excited for Thursday.
Yes, sir. Brandon, you're going to be at Dodgers opening day, correct?
Correct.
I will be at Angels opening day. Christian, you'll
going
be
to the Cubs opening day.
Copy.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
no, I'll be at home.
So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go division by division, starting in the AL East, then go into the AL Central, and then finishing up this episode with the AL West, and then we'll do the same thing in the next episode for the National League. We're going to go division by division and rank these teams from 1 to 5 and where we think we're going to finish in the standings. So without further ado, I think it's time to hop right in for it.
Boom.
So
let's go.
I'm going to go ahead and start it off, and we're going to go into the AL East.
All right.
So for the AL East, I got the Orioles finishing in 5th. Honestly, they want to be bad. I don't think there's much to talk about here. Just call me when Adley Rutschman's up. Switch hitting catcher. That guy's going to be an absolute stud, and I can't wait to watch it and see what he can do. In 4th place, I have the New York Yankees. I don't think they did enough this offseason, plain and simple. Christian and I had a lot of conversations last week about why that is. No, missing the boat going after Correa, adding Josh Donaldson is great. But at that price tag, it's a little bit much. They only had 2 players with the weighted runs created plus over 115 last season. That's Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. And while the pitching is strong, like I said, the lineup just isn't enough. The team WRC plus is 101. That's 6 points behind Boston, 8 points behind Tampa Bay, and 10 points behind Toronto, who added Matt Chapman. Boston added Trevor Story. Those teams got better. The Yankees did not. In 3rd place, I got the Red Sox finishing, and I think the big question here for this team this year is going to be the health of Chris Sale and when they're going to get him back, but they have a really strong offensive ball club. Adding Trevor Story is a great get for them. I think he could take them to that next level. Adding that defense at second base as well is going to be massive for them. They have a really tough April schedule. They got 3 against the Yankees, 3 against the Rays, and 7 against the Jays. May doesn't get much easier, but I think if they coast out of these first 2 months at 500, they're going to be well set up to chase a wild card spot this year. In 2nd place, I got the Tampa Bay Rays, and this is a little bit of a surprise. And going into the offseason, I don't think this is how I would have had the division shaping out, but with the offseason, the other team that's going to finish in first, in my opinion, I think this is the only way you can put these teams. And they look overall a little bit weaker than last season. You know, they're not going to have Glaz now. They traded away Joey Wendell, who's a very versatile, strong player, bats from both sides of the plate. But this is what the Rays do, man. You know, they're going to end up winning 95 games. They'll make a wild card spot with, you know, scrubs out there throwing. Their bullpen is going to be absolutely unbelievable. They maximize their talent year after year. And obviously that leaves the Toronto Blue Jays as the number 1 team in the AL East. And this is the team that had the best offseason in the entire league. They lost Robbie Ray and Semien, but, you know, I think they're poised to take another step forward because of the guys they added. They re-signed Jose Berrios. They traded for Matt Chapman, signed Kevin Gausman, who had a great year in San Francisco last year, and Yusei Kikuchi, whose peripherals look incredible. He could turn out to be the steal of the offseason, potentially. They have tons of young talent, Vlad and Bo, obviously. But then they got guys like Matt Chapman, George Springer, Teoscar Hernandez that can bang it around. This is a team that looks like it's going to be playing well into October this year and could potentially be fighting for a World Series.
Right on, man. To touch on that, I think you kind of hit it on the head. I don't see much difference here except for our Yankees and Red Sox, but I'll go ahead and start off with that 5th place team is the obvious Baltimore Orioles. You know, they're not trying to be better in the offseason, so they're just not going to be better, you know, during the regular season, and we're not even going to talk about playoffs when it comes to them. So we'll leave them to do what they've been doing and what they do best, and then we'll move on. Coming on in the 4th spot in that division, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Red Sox. And it's tough because this division is neck and neck. You know, anybody could. I say the Red Sox will finish 4th, but, you know, they could very well finish 2nd or 1st. It's just depending on how that division's going to look and take off. But with the Yankees, all the star power they have, they got Garrett Cole, who's, no doubt one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the league. I don't see them falling back all the way to the 4th spot. I know they didn't do a lot in the offseason, but they have a lot. They have a lot of star power. If they can find, some chemistry, I think is what they lack, during the regular season. If they could find that, I think you'll see good things from the Yankees. But, like you said, those Jays and those Rays are two good, very good baseball teams. And you touched on it. The Jays had no doubt the most active offseason. Like you said, adding Chapman, signing Gausman, I think that's huge for them. And it doesn't really take a step back from the guys, that they did lose. I think they're going to be a nasty ball club. But I do have them finishing second just because the Rays, like you said, are a team that comes out and they find out ways to win baseball games. And I think they are going to be a 95-plus win team this year, coming in the first place.
Actually, Kyle, my list is exactly the same as yours, funny enough. So
Copier.
I think the Blue Jays, they did a great job this offseason. They had a little bit of a coming out party last year where you saw how truly good this team could be. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is a stud. He's a future face of the MLB, if he's not one already. And one of the most exciting players that there is to watch with all the young talent that's in the league right now. But they also went out and got a top of the line starter in Gausman, which is a huge get. They got Kikuchi, which that could be a completely sleeper addition that no one's really kind of talking about. And then towards the end of the offseason, they got Chapman. They went out and traded Chapman for Chapman. So I feel like all around they have young players in Vladdy, and they have a good staff now. So I feel like they're going to be a really fun and competitive ball team all year long. Next, I have the Rays, and it just feels like the Rays year in and year out. They don't really spend much, but they always end up winning games. I feel like they're going to be, just like you said, their bullpen is going to be really good. If they get a lead into the 6th or 7th, good luck, because that's just how they win games. And then I got the Red Sox coming in third. I really like the addition of Trevor Story. I know his splits away from the Colorado Rockies home field, Coors Field, is not great. But they have that short porch for the Red Monster. It could help a little bit, but I still like their rotation. If they get Chris Sale healthy, who knows? But maybe they start competing for that second place spot and they can take over where the Rays are at. And I feel like that's definitely doable. And then I feel like the Yankees, they kind of whiffed this offseason, where we kind of touched base on it last week. But it just seems like everyone else except for the Orioles were doing stuff in that division where they're trying to get better. So it feels like the Yankees, all they really did was re-sign Rizzo, and I don't feel like they did too much else of note. But Garrett Cole is going to be Garrett Cole. I thought it was funny over the spring training games a few days ago where they started mentioning they're going to start tightening up on the sticky stuff and start tightening down on that, and then he gives up 4 home runs in the first and second inning. So I thought that was pretty funny. But I just feel like they didn't do enough. They had to make themselves stand out, especially considering everyone else in their division was so focused on getting better. They just didn't do enough for me. So I feel like it's going to be a real shock to Yankees fans because they're so used to spending money and winning. And they didn't spend money, and I don't expect them to win much. So I feel like Yankees fans are going to be calling for the GM's name or head again. And maybe that gets some change. Who knows? And then the Orioles, there's not much to say there. I think Max Scherzer is his yearly salary is more than their whole payroll as a team. So I feel like that says enough about them.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. So it looks like the only difference is we got the same list. You just flipped the Yankees and the Red Sox, and then the Jays and the Rays.
Yeah.
So I think
and like I said, that could go any way at 100%. Any time.
Any of these teams theoretically could finish in first. Any of these teams could theoretically finish in second. I think
except for the Orioles.
I think the Rays. Oh yeah, okay. Obviously, we're talking about the top four. I think the Rays' floor is going to be second or third in the division, just because they're so deep. They're not going to be bogged down by injury issues. Your guy's not producing. They'll just bring somebody else up, make a trade. That's just what the Rays do. They're like a cockroach. You can't kill them no matter what.
Oh, I know.
I think the first thing we should talk about real quick here, is New York, because I think that's been a big story this offseason. Why are the Yankees not behaving like a big market ball club? Why are they not going out and throwing money at Corey Seager or Carlos Correa or another starting pitcher? I don't know. Any of these guys. They kind of are operating in a much different way than they did back when it was Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez and the generation of Yankees before them and before them, where they were buying all these guys. Now the Yankees have kind of switched their organizational philosophy into more of a build from within, kind of like what we see a lot of small market teams like the Rays or the Royals do. So it's really atypical. Something that I want to check in with the Yankees, though, I found this interesting when I was browsing through Fangraphs preparing for this episode. So Aroldis Chapman should be the poster boy for the sticky stuff. It should not be Garrett Cole. Aroldis Chapman, before the sticky stuff crackdown last year, pitched 23 and a third innings, had a 1.93 ERA, struck out 16.6 per nine, and only walked 4.2 per nine. That 4.2 is a high number, but just for the context sake of who Aroldis Chapman is, it's a pretty average number for him. After they cracked down on sticky stuff on July 24th, 33 innings pitched, a 4.36 ERA. Still struck a lot of guys out, was striking out 14.7 per nine, but that walk rate jumped up to 7.4 per nine. So walked over 3 full batters more per nine once they started cracking down on sticky stuff. His chase rate was in the first percentile, meaning he was in the bottom 1% of getting guys to chase out of the zone, and his fastball command just completely abandoned him. So when we talk about sticky stuff and a guy like Chapman potentially bouncing back, I think there's a little bit more concern there's a little bit less concern right now than there should be, because if we look at these numbers, there's a very clear trend of why Aroldis Chapman. It's not hard to make this connection of why his production kind of fell off of a cliff last year.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw that in. I was
That's
just
interesting.
blown away looking at it, because we
Didn't
always
think
talk
much of
about
that.
guys like Garrett Cole being the guy that's connected to it, but it turns out his teammate's the one that was affected more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Just Garrett Cole because it's the Astros. So
Yeah, 100%.
cheater.
Easy to
Just
to
got a
say.
big contract.
Yeah.
He was the poster boy for it. I don't know. Why is it, do you think, the Rays over the Jays? Because we know how much they
Scrappy.
added. Just scrappiness.
Yeah. Like I said, the Jays, they did everything possible to become a better baseball team, this offseason. And I think it's going to show. There's just something about the Rays, the way they play. Like he said, if they have a lead after the 6th or 7th inning, that's a really, really hard team to beat. Bullpen's deep. Offense is they're not overpowering, but they find ways to get on base, put the ball in play, get runners to score. It's not like you're watching a Dodger game where you're just waiting for that home run to pop off,
guys
and
are gonna go out
you're
and
not
bang.
you're not stringing a bunch of hits and small hits here and there together. The Rays are really good at playing that scrappy style of baseball, and it's fun to watch too. It's hard to beat them.
Touching on the Rays, and then I want to touch on one more thing on the Blue Jays. The Rays have a up and coming star in Wander Franco, and where he came out last season and he kind of showed us why there's so much hype around him. I feel like this year he's gonna really have a coming out party and announce his arrival to the MLB. Like, hey, I'm here, and I'm gonna be one of the best players in the league for decades, or not decades, but 2 maybe. So I think them having Wander Franco, where they name me another star in the past 2-3 years for the Rays where they had a star on their team. I don't know if you can.
I think the only one would potentially be Tyler Glasnow, but
Yeah.
he's a pitcher, so I mean, it's kind of just a different conversation entirely. But 100% right on the money with that. They
Yeah,
don't
so-
have that star power. Franco is that for them.
Maybe their star power is in their front office, where they continually are able to find talent where everyone neglects or doesn't look. And maybe that's where their talent is. But they're actually going to have one on the field, and he's young, and he's exciting, and he is going to be one of the faces of
Yeah.
baseball.
The hype is real
so
on that kid.
that's why this league is going to be, this division is going to be so interesting, because they have so many teams that are actually competitive and exciting and fun, and they're exciting and fun in their own way too. It's not just like you're going out and buying starting pitching. The Rays are scrappy. The Rays get it done in other ways that other teams don't. So they provide a different way of winning, which is going to be fun when you see like the Blue Jays going against the Blue Jays. I feel like they're 2 different styles of baseball. So not only is it two different styles, but they're both really good teams. So I think it's going to be really fun. And that's why it's going to be, like Brandon said, you touched on it too. It's a flip flop. It's really a toss up with this league. And that's why it's just a fun conversation to have, because it's so exciting to think about what the future holds for this division. I want to kind of touch on the Blue Jays. So they had Robbie Ray depart this offseason and sign elsewhere. But at the trade deadline, they got Barrios. And his impact, he had a 1.20 ERA plus in his time with the Blue Jays, which is phenomenal. And then they also went out and got Gausman. And Gausman, we all know, had a really good season. But then the stats also back that up too, where he had a 1.38 ERA plus. So he was better than 38% of the league in taking out ballparks, and it factors in some other statistics. But bottom line, they added two really good starters, and so to pair that with their young roster, their talented roster, they went out and got two top of the line players. Even though Barrios wasn't really a part of the free agency, I feel like his addition to the rotation can't be understated enough.
Yeah, Barrios he's electric on the mound. He's one of those guys who he spins everything so hard. He throws everything with so much movement. The polish isn't quite the same, and the stature isn't the same, but the stuff, just the raw stuff, reminds me a lot of Max Scherzer when I watch him pitch. You know, you have a fastball that's just so heavy in on the hands. He kind of throws like a loopy slurve kind of breaking ball. He's just, when he's on, he's absolutely unhittable. Yeah. And he did a really, really good job when he got sent over there to Toronto last year. They gave him that 7-year contract. They're going to have him for a full season. This team won 90 games last year, and I think they've gotten so much better at every level of their organization. They just continue to get better. You know, you're going to have another year of development from Vlad, another year of development from Bo. Teoscar Hernandez casually slashed 296, 346, 524 last year, 132 WRC plus. That'll play all day, every day. They got Matt Chapman brought over, one of the best defenders in the history of the third base position. We're already comfortable saying that at this stage in his career. And he can bang it a little bit of a down year offensively last year, but we've seen this guy. He's flashed 40 homer potential at times in his career.
Yep.
And then they add the guys, like you said, Kevin Gausman, really high strikeout guy. Yusei Kikuchi, the spin rate stuff is unbelievable for him. If they can maybe unlock a little bit that maybe the Mariners weren't able to, I think he could take a massive step forward. And we saw them just do that with Robbie Ray a year ago. You know, Robbie Ray went from a guy who was great, struck out a ton of guys. He actually has the highest strikeouts per nine in the history of baseball, but he couldn't stop walking guys. They bring him into Toronto. Their pitching coach starts working with him. He wins the Cy Young. How you doing? See you later. We'll bring in Yusei Kikuchi. Hopefully try to do the same thing. I don't know, man. At the end of the day, you play 162 and hopefully the cream rises to the top. That's what the goal of the long season is. And I just feel like Toronto is so talented. They're a blue blood World Series contender. And I feel like in order to really, really solidify that, they're going to come out hot, win this division. And I think they're going to be playing really late into October.
Yeah. So one more thing on the Blue Jays. It's sometimes hard to remember all the players they acquired, because it's just like I even forgot about kind of Matt Chapman. Matt Chapman is a difference maker for them, and they got him for relatively not that much. And so they get a difference maker at third base who is really good on the defensive side of the ball. And like you said, he has some pop in his bat, and we've seen him put up 30 home run numbers before. To pair that with their young roster and go solidify that rotation, like they already were winning games and were fun and exciting last year, and now they're like putting their chips in the middle. And I feel like come trade deadline, when they have a hole on their roster, they're going to go address that and get that filled, and they're going to be ready to compete come October.
So now we're going to kick it over to the AL Central. And guys, this is a very weird division. I think outside of the number one team, which I think we'll all have the same team up top, I think there's a lot of different ways you can organize the bottom four teams in this division. And for me, I have the Cleveland Guardians in their first year under their new name in 5th place. And quite frankly, the Guardians are going to stink. They're going to be bad.
Really?
They're not going to be Orioles bad. They're not going to be Diamondbacks bad, but they're going to be a bad baseball team. They're going to trade their best player at some point this year. Either they're going to trade him at the deadline, or it's going to be a huge story that gets in the way of their struggles throughout the middle of the year. They're going to be constant rumors of Jose Ramirez getting traded. Who knows if he ends up actually getting dealt, but that's going to be a cloud that hangs over the team the whole year. And yeah, sure, they got a guy like Shane Bieber who's going to compete for the AL Cy Young, but if you go look at their projected rotation going into opening day, it's not great. It's a lot of young, unproven guys, and Cleveland does have the reputation for developing those guys, but I guess I'm a little bit more skeptical than most are. I haven't seen a lot of people predicting Cleveland this low. Moving over to fourth, I have the Minnesota Twins, and I think this is going to be another surprise pick. They got plenty of thunder in the lineup. They had a nice offseason. I talked last week about how much I love the Correa signing, the way they offloaded Donaldson's contract to pay for that. Very, very smart. The problem is they have no pitching. And when I say they have no pitching, they have no pitching. Dylan Bundy, Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, and Chris Archer. Those are their... Joe Ryan, the opening day starter. Those other three guys, they're 2 through 4. That's atrocious. Dylan Bundy couldn't make it on the Angels rotation last year when they couldn't even get warm bodies out there. They were taking people off the street and throwing them on the mound.
That almost got me.
It's just really bad if you go and look at the organizational depth at pitcher. It's not any better. They have no reinforcements coming. They're going to win a lot of games 10-8, but they're also going to lose a lot of games 8-10. For third place, I have the Kansas City Royals, and this is a team that I firmly admit I have talked myself into them. They have tons of depth in the rotation. I think that's why it's so easy to believe that they're going to overachieve this season. They got Brady Singer, Chris Bubich, Daniel Lynch, and Jackson Kowar. They also got a couple of guys in the minor leagues. Asa Lacy potentially making his major league debut this year. Big, strong lefty, throws the ball real hard, lots of movement. And I think the big reason why I'm going to watch a lot of Royals games this year, Bobby Witt Jr., the number one prospect in all of baseball. He's going to be on the opening day roster. He's going to bat second for him. He's going to be an absolute stud. I don't know if it'll be right away, but when he hits his stride, man, he's going to be electric. A lot is to go right. Obviously, going through all this, we need a lot of young pitching to develop. We need a lot of guys to take a step forward. Bobby Witt needs to be able to produce. But it really does feel like a team that's poised to take that next step. And another team that's poised to take that next step is the second place team for me. That's the Detroit Tigers, which I think is... You're nodding. I think you might be in agreement with me there. Speaking of teams looking to make a leap, man, this Tigers squad looks strong. They surprised everyone last year. 77 wins when I thought they were going to finish dead last in the division. That was a huge step up. And they brought in Javi Baez, who's going to smack it around. He had a very good offensive season last year, despite a lot of the lowlights of people mocking him for swinging and missing it, sliders in the dirt and stuff. He could bang, man. Javi Baez at OPS plus over 125 last season. They added Eduardo Escobar, who's good for a 4 ERA at 200 innings a year. And then they also got Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green in the waiting. I think there's a lot of really good things to like about this team. And if it goes right, they could end up winning this division. I'm just kidding. Because the Chicago White Sox are in this division, man. They have nothing to worry about. They're the clear-cut best team in the division. They're probably the second best team in the American League, if we're being honest. They are a machine. And on top of having one of the best lineups in the league, the top 3 in their rotation is very strong. They did just lose Lance Lynn for the next 4 weeks to a knee injury. But then you talk about the other guys they have in the rotation. I just don't think that they're going to have anybody really challenging them. This feels like a division where somebody's going to win 100 games, and then 2 teams are going to win around 88, 85, and then some bottom feeders at the bottom of the division for me.
Right on. That's good to hear that. I'll touch on it here starting at the, I guess it's 5th place in the Central, right? I'm going to go ahead and say the Kansas City Royals, kind of a quiet off season. You don't typically hear much about them at all ever, and if you do, it's probably not very good. Look for them to win maybe 65 games this year. Not too exciting, but that's just what it is. But I don't think they're better than the Guardians. The Guardians are going to come in 4th. God, I hate saying that name, don't you?
Yeah, it should have been the Spiders.
The Spiders. All right, I'm going to forget you said that. I think I like the Guardians more. Yeah, they're going to face some drama with, are they going to deal the guy or are they not going to trade him? Who knows? And that could kind of be a fork in their road. It kind of could put a damper on their success. Not much more to say about that. And I actually have the Tigers coming in 3rd. I know you guys seem to be kind of high on them, but just because they surprised us last year with 70-plus wins, I don't think they're gonna come out and overpower the Twins and the White Sox. other than that. But they are a surprising team. Like you said, last year I thought they were going to be, one of the, if not the worst team in the league, and they got some wins under their belt. And finishing in the second spot in this division, I have the Minnesota Twins. They had a little interesting offseason, picking up Gary. They got Carlos. That's obviously a big name, even though I hate the guy. Look for them to win some games. I think it's going to be fun to watch them play. But like we were talking about, I don't think anybody is going to exceed what the White Sox are going to bring us this year. They're absolutely insane. We're going to finally get to enjoy, hopefully, granted injuries, hopefully he stays healthy, but we're going to hopefully get a full season with Luis Robert, our guy, who, interestingly enough, in 68 games had a 3.2 FWAR last year. And the guy's, just so much more room for improvement. I think he's a stud without anything else being said. And then you also got the likeness of Eloy Jimenez, and you got Andrew Vaughn, Gavin Sheets, Jake Berger, Kopech, the list goes on. They're a crazy good team, and then they have who I think might win the Cy Young this year, and Giolito. Dude's got nasty stuff, and he's going to come out on fire this year. Look for them to make a deep push this October.
Cool. So, the AL Central for me, I have the Royals at number 5. And I have the Guardians at number 4. I'll kind of pair them together because there's not a whole lot to be said because I just feel like they don't compete as much for that top position. So the Guardians, I have them the bottom because of their almost zero spending this offseason. I think they have one of the bottom 3 in the total spending for salary for them with their salary this year. And then I feel like that's really going to prohibit them. Unfortunately, the Guardians, they always find a way to, with their young pitching, they always pump out pitching. It always feels like no matter what season it is, they always have some no-name guy then become a top 15 pitcher in the league. Shane Bieber's still there, so we'll see what happens there, but they do have some young pitching prospects. I feel like it'll be enough to keep them out of the bottom spot. The Royals, similarly to the Mariners for me, they have a lot of young talent that I just feel like it's just not there yet. But Bobby Witt is definitely going to be an exciting player to watch. Then I got the Tigers. I actually have them coming in 3rd. I don't have them coming in 2nd, but I feel like their future is definitely going to be exciting and fun to watch. This is a team similarly to the Mariners who has a ton of promise in their up-and-coming farm system. They went out and signed Javier Baez, and you can start to see the resemblance of a nice core to come together to pair up with their young and up-and-coming farm. I just don't think they have enough to compete with the Twins and Sox at this point. I think that the Twins, although they don't have the pitching, their lineup is just a little bit more lethal than the Tigers are right now. But I feel like they're going to be ready to compete in the next 2 to 3 years where they will be competing for that top spot. I just feel like it's just too early. But they're going to be fun. They're going to be scrappy, and they're going to be a thorn in the side of the White Sox all year. Even though they're not going to be competing for that number 1 spot, they're going to be playing some competitive baseball. I don't think many people saw the Tigers coming out and winning as many games as they did last year. And they're starting to show that they're a young and fun team. And Detroit really needs something from their Tigers baseball team because the last 5 to 10 years hasn't really given us much. Then I have the Twins at number 2. The Twins are interesting. Last year, they didn't really put up much of a fight to compete for the top spot. So they went out and got Sonny Gray and Carlos Correa in a massive upgrade in their middle infield for them. They also went out and got Chris Archer, which it could be nothing, but it could be maybe he can be a contributor in their bullpen for them. It's very low risk, high reward. They didn't really have to invest too much into him, but he could provide pitching depth for them at the very least. And I just feel like their lineup will provide enough of a thump to keep them from the bottom 3 teams and potentially maybe get in a wild card spot. We'll see. I don't think they have enough on their lineup, but I appreciate them actually trying to compete this year more than they did last year. And I actually think that it benefits the White Sox in a way. If you look at the White Sox last season, who I actually have coming in number 1 for this division, the White Sox coasted for pretty much the whole year, and then they got to playoff baseball, and they had to start playing teams where they had a really good lineup, and it wasn't just like they could roll over teams and be done with the game by the fourth or fifth inning. So I feel like the competition in the division, even though it's not too much for them, is going to give them enough where they're going to be ready to compete come October. They have one of the most talented lineups from top to bottom, with most of their young core locked up on long-term deals. Last year was a bit of a coming out party for the team, although they fell massively short of their expectations. Over the season, they lost Carlos Rodon, who was a huge contributor for them in the first half of the season, but his endurance kind of started to taper off at the end. And they also traded away Craig Kimbrell, who wet the bed for them after they acquired him. I still feel like they have a hole in their outfield. They really could have used a power left-handed bat. I was really hoping Schwarber would go to them. But that's something I feel like they can address come the trade deadline. I don't feel like that's a huge need at this moment. I feel like they're still weak on the left-hand side of the plate. Besides the outfield position, maybe they go out and get a better DH. And then I still have a little bit of questions in their rotation. Losing Rodon, he was a huge contributor for them. Even though he didn't pitch that way towards the end of the season for them, I feel like his value to the team cannot be understated. And yes, they have Giolito, but Lance Lynn was also a Cy Young pitcher for them for half to 2/3 of a season for them. And he's injured, so he's going to start the season on 4 to 6 weeks on the injury reserve. So they're really going to have to rely on their young pitching in Michael Kopech. They really could have used Crochet, but he's going to be out the whole year with Tommy John. So there's just a little bit of question marks for me with their rotation. Dallas Keuchel's still there. He shouldn't really even be on the team, in my opinion.
Wow.
If their rotation can hold up enough, I feel like their lineup is just too dynamic and too young and too exciting to not win enough ball games to win in first place. I just feel like the whole franchise thinks they're going to win, has greater expectations than just this division, though. Do they have enough to win the World Series? I don't know, but they have plenty enough to walk away with this division by 10 games.
So the one thing we'll talk about with the White Sox before I think the obvious thing we got to talk about is how different we view the Twins. I want to read you, his name's escaping me, Liam Hendricks. I want to read you Liam Hendricks' numbers from 2021. He's the best reliever in baseball. I don't think that's an interesting take in any way. I think that should be the consensus agreement. Guy had a 2.54 ERA in 71 full innings, a 42% strikeout rate, a 2.6% walk rate. That's good for a 1.57 Sierra and a 59 ERA minus. 2.7 FWAR as a relief pitcher in 71 innings. He is dominant. And watching him walk guys and scream fuck is the funniest thing on the planet. I absolutely live for Liam Hendricks. He's probably one of my favorite players in the league. There's really nothing else to talk about the White Sox. They're so damn good. Luis Robert is a superstar, like you mentioned. Yeah. What he did in a short sample size last year, unbelievable. He's my pick for the guy who's going to eventually dethrone Trout as the best player in baseball. I think he's just so dynamic. He's so athletic. He has so many strong tools. But we got to jump over to the interesting thing, and that's the Twins. And I want you guys to give serious thought to this. The Twins are the Angels. The Twins are who the Angels have been for the last 4 years. They can bang with anybody in the league, but they can't get anybody out. And I've watched in turmoil and suffering as the Angels, who I am a diehard fan of, have been bottom 2 in the AL West for the last 5+ years because they just can't pitch. At the end of the day, you can score all the runs in the world, but if you can't get anybody out, we've seen this. We've seen the Angels do exactly this. Chris Archer's that is a Billy Epler Angels move. That is the Matt Harvey signing. You know, it's exactly that. They just don't have enough guys that are going to throw 150 innings for them. I don't even know if they have a lot of guys that are going to throw 100 innings for them. If there's an injury, look out, it's going to get even worse. Yeah. I just don't see how they're going to hit enough to make up for how bad that staff is. Because, man, when I tell you, like, this is the worst projected starting rotation in a team that's a lot of people are picking as a playoff team that I've ever seen. What the Angels were dealing with, they were looking at a rotation like this in July and August. This is what they're trotting out on opening day. Outside of Joe Ryan and Sonny Gray, there is, like, Dylan Bundy is one of the worst pitchers of baseball. I watched him start 15 games for the Angels last year, and it was atrocious. So I don't see how they could overcome that, but I would love to hear the justification from you guys, because I would love to be sold on these guys. I love a lot of players on the squad. I just can't get past the pitching. It's too bad.
Yeah, well, you being an Angels fan, I mean, you know firsthand,
Yeah, I have an authority on bad pitching.
You know what can happen. But I think the difference between the Twins and the Angels is the Twins have a will to win games. Even from sorry.
They just want to win, man. They just can't.
No, you got players on the team that want to win, but I don't think
we'll talk about the Angels a little.
Yeah, they'll get their time. You do make an interesting point on it, because they are probably the weakest pitching staff out of all the teams that I think are going to be in the playoffs. And I haven't given it much thought, just because I think the big names that they do have and acquired kind of overshadowed that a little bit. I do think they are a team that can out-hit, how do I want to say that, score more than they give up on any given night. And it comes down to that division too, I think. The competition you have within the division. I still think they're going to be up there in competition.
Yeah, I will say, I think the Twins, Tigers, and Royals are going to finish within 7 or 8 games of each other. I think those 3 teams, we're kind of trying to split hairs. I think they all have their issues. They all have their strengths. I just feel like out of those teams, the Twins have the least going for them, which is crazy to think about in a lineup that has Byron Buxton, and it has Carlos Correa, and it has guys like Max Kepler.
Gio
Urshela and Gary Sanchez coming over. Gary Sanchez can't catch and he can't get on base, but damn, can that dude hit the ball far?
It'll go far when he does it.
There's a lot to like when you look at this. When you look at the lineup, I just can't overlook the blemishes. I think it's too heavy of something to overcome, because I've watched a team that has a dynamic, uber talented center fielder and a very expensive left side of the infield player. And, all of these things, they got dudes that can bang. They just can't get anybody out. I watched this for years and years and years, and I just don't see how the Twins can get past it, because I've watched the Angels try to do it, and they've never been able to.
Yeah.
I think both of you kind of hit on 2 good points there, and I feel like we can arrive at the truth between the 2 of you. Brandon brought up that the competition just isn't that great, and you brought up that they can just hit with the best of them. I think that's where the answer is. They have enough thump in their lineup to win enough games to not be third. I think it's their pitching that's just patchwork. If it works out, I feel like they have a chance to be low 80s. But if it doesn't, they're going to be, like you said, mid to low 70s. But I wanted to kind of throw this out there. If it all goes to hell for them, I wanted to kind of do a hot take here and say I feel like the Twins could trade Carlos Correa by the deadline.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely.
That's in the
so
cards
if
for sure.
if it all goes to hell, he's on a 1-year contract basically, and then Correa can pick where he wants to go, and he can go to somebody that competes.
No trade clause on Correa's contract,
right?
too.
So he can
pick where he
wherever he wants to go.
So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that was something that we touched on. We talked about how interesting the contract is it gives Correa so much control, and the Twins are just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah.
The Twins only won 73 games last year. They actually finished in last, a game behind the Royals for 4th place. I think Cleveland is going to go station to station, wire to wire, full year in last place. I think they're just point blank bad. So for me, we're arguing between second, third, fourth. And I think there's definitely more to argue about when it comes to the Royals and the Twins. I feel like the Tigers are a step above both of these teams. We talked about the big jump they took last year, winning those 77 games. And then you talk about the guys they brought in. Javi Baez, man, last year, let me pull his stat sheet up on Fangraphs. For everybody that was making fun of Javi Baez last year, 116 WRC plus, excuse me. Yeah, he struck out a lot, but the guy was hitting the ball hard all over the place. A 45% hard hit rate, a 13.4% barrel rate. He got on base at a 319 clip last year, which is almost his career high. He almost matched his career high of 326 with that number. He had a very strong season. Eduardo Escobar, great player. And then Tucker Barnhart, who I didn't mention. That's a Gold Glove switch hitting catcher. that they're going to throw behind the plate to control this young staff. He's been in the league for a very long time. That's going to be great for guys like Matt Manning and Casey Mize who are trying to find their footing in the big leagues. I really feel like this team is the one that I can't get on board with. I can't be convinced of is going to finish behind the Twins, at least as it stands right now. But you guys could probably talk me out of the Royals if we really talked about it enough. But honestly, who cares who finishes in third and fourth in the AL Central? Because we have another really interesting division to talk about, and that's the AL West. So I got the Oakland Athletics finishing in 5th place in the AL West, and I think the reasons why are obvious. They're not trying to be good. This is what this franchise does. They have a good couple of years, and they trade everything away. Matt Chapman, see you later. Matt Olson, smell you later. Sean Manaea, have a good one, man. They traded away everybody. No reason to even talk about them at this point. So we're going to move on to the Texas Rangers, who are going to finish in 4th place. They definitely got better. That's going to happen when you add Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. And this lineup is certainly strong. They added Mitch Garver as well, and they signed John Gray to a contract in free agency. The problem is that they only won 60 games last year. So if they won 21 more games, that would only get them to 500. I just don't think this team got 21 games better, which is definitely, I think, what it's going to take to get you at least in the conversation for 3rd place, because I think there's a big gap between what the Rangers are and what the top 3 teams in the division, being the Angels, Mariners, and Astros. I think they're a large step above where Texas is right now. And in 3rd place, and I think this is going to be the first surprise from this division for me, I got the Seattle Mariners. And I want you to hear me out, obviously, as an Angels fan. A lot of this stuff's going to sound a little biased, but just hang with me. The Mariners lineup, very strong, and I love that they added Robbie Ray, who won the Cy Young last year, and then Jesse Winker. That dude can bang with anybody in the league. His ZiPS projection has him leading all 3 major categories for the Mariners this year, meaning he's going to have the highest batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging, according to ZiPS projections. If Jared Kelenic takes a step forward, Julio Rodriguez comes up and mashes, he's most likely going to make the opening day roster. He's been a monster in spring training. At the young arms of their rotation, like Logan Gilbert, step up and live up to the billing. They could win this division 100%. Now, my concern. They were 33-19 in one-run games, and they had a minus 51 run differential on the season last year. Their Pythagorean win-loss, which uses that run differential to determine what their win-loss should have been, did not have them winning the 90 games they won last year. It was significantly lower. So I don't know if I'm completely sold on the Mariners. I think a lot of things have to go right. A lot of guys have to progress, take a step forward. I'm curious to see what Robbie Ray is going to look like in a new organization, working with new coaching, considering what he was before he got to Toronto. And I don't know. I just think there's a couple of questions here that the other teams check the boxes off a little bit better. And then in 2nd place, another surprise, the Houston Astros. And I think this is certainly... So listen, hear me out. Certainly the strongest team on paper, but they lost their best player, and they're highly dependent on a bounce back from Alex Bregman, who was atrocious last year, continued success from a 35-year-old Michael Brantley, a rookie shortstop who's never had a major league at bat, and a 39-year-old Justin Verlander who's coming off Tommy John surgery. If you're comfortable putting a team with all of those question marks, with their ace missing time last year with elbow surgery, losing out in their best position player over the last 5 years, relying heavily on a 35-year-old outfielder with no speed or power to provide good production for them, and then relying on Alex Bregman, who since the dead ball has not been the same player. If you want to do that, fine. But I'm going to roll with the team that I think is going to win the division, and that's the Los Angeles Angels. And obviously, got an Angels thing. I got an Angels hat on. I got an Angels shirt on. I got an Angels podium right there. But hear me out, because if everything goes right, this team is certainly going to win the division. They got Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, Jared Walsh, and Anthony Rendon hitting 1 through 4 in their lineup. Easily the strongest top 4 of a lineup in the league. Max Stassi, who Brandon and I have talked about a little bit off the show, he's emerged as one of the best catchers in baseball, if not a top 3 catcher in all of baseball. He slugged .426 last year and had a 2.9 F4 in only 87 games. And he's one of the best pitch framers in the game. He excels behind the plate, and all of the metrics prove that. And they overhauled that bullpen, which has been a huge a huge thorn in their side for their entire existence, it seems like. Added Aaron Loop, Ryan Tepera, Archie Bradley. They're getting Ty Buttrey back as well. I think the biggest question is the rotation, but I think they've done a lot of good things to remedy that. They're going to keep stretching Shohei Ohtani out. I love the move bringing in Noah Syndergaard. Patrick Sandoval has developed into a very strong pitcher, and I absolutely love Reed Detmers. I think he's going to be a superstar pitcher in this league. And I think he's going to take that step. And I know you guys laughed at the beginning when I said it, but if things go right for the Angels and a couple things break their way, and why not? They haven't had any luck in terms of on-the-field stuff in years, it feels like. Why can't it be this year where they stay healthy and Trout, plays 150 games, Rendon plays 150 games, Ohtani plays the full season, Walsh continues to break out? Crazier things have happened, and this team talent-wise can play with anybody in the world, let alone just the teams in their division. So I don't think it's as far-fetched as you guys do. Maybe it's just blind fan loyalty, but there is a lot of things to like about this Angels team.
You made good points.
You make him.
I brought you back from laughing with your heads down on the table to hearing at least I made good points. So hey, at least there was something in there. Go ahead and roll in with your
You
picks.
can make garbage sound sophisticated, but that don't mean it not garbage.
Yeah, you slapped me in the face with it, that's for sure. But one thing we can't agree on is the Oakland A's aren't worth talking about. So I'm going to jump straight to the Rangers. And you kind of hit it on the noggin. I don't think adding Seager and Semien is it's going to make you what didn't need to be 21 games better. I don't think it's even going to make them 15 games better. They got a powerful lineup, but at the end of the day, they're not. They're not one of those teams that's going to excel in, especially this division that seems to have a lot of firepower this year. Coming in third, I have what I think most logical people are going to have is the Anaheim Angels. On paper, they can be good. They can be a very good team, like you said. You just list off some names: Trout, Ohtani, Walsh, Stassi, Rendon. Who am I missing?
Jared Walsh, Brandon Marsh, Joe Adell.
Marsh, Adele. You've got a lot of good guys.
Torrey Hunter.
David Fletcher.
But it's just you're going on your third year paying a guy $20 plus million to not be on your team, who was actually, I thought could have been one of your guys to take you further and beef up that good lineup you guys do have. But at the end of the day, like we were just talking about with your argument with the Twins, I don't think you guys have the pitching down the stretch to go win in the West. Sorry you had to hear it from me, but I'm sure you didn't expect anything less. Good team, exciting, but unlike the Rays, the Angels are a team that find ways to lose. They'll be a team that scores 12 runs in 3 innings and they lose the game 13-12. So it's hard to wrap my head around them coming in second place, let alone winning the division. You really, no pun intended, came from left field there, brother. The Mariners coming in second place. I love the addition to Robbie Ray. I think he's going to be great. Paired up with that monster lineup, I think they have. But I, for one, don't think that losing Carlos Correa makes the Astros that much worse of a team. It's a blow. Don't get me wrong. Best shortstop in the league. But I don't think it's going to make the Astros as a group digress too much. I'm not going to let one off here from Bregman. 1.5, I guess. Determine, my thoughts on the guy. And everything I'm saying about the Astros, you guys need to know I hate them. Least favorite sports organization in the world. So if I say anything good about them, probably must believe it. But, I think they've got the firepower to win this division, and no one's going to stop them. I think they're going to possibly even be a 100-win team again this year. You can go ahead and take it away.
Similarly to you, I have my rankings very similar, just a little bit different reasoning. A's I got at the bottom, obvious reasons. Again, Max Scherzer I think is making more than their whole team, so that's
significantly.
That should say all you need to know. It's sad for A's fans too, because I feel like they did have a decent team that was competitive. Weren't they playing for just 3 years ago, they were playing against the White Sox and advanced in that wild card game. Like, they weren't that bad. They just don't want to invest in their team or their fans, which sucks. Rangers committed $500 million to 2 players. So, I mean, hopefully that'll get you 10 games. I would hope. They're going to finish in 4th. But it starts getting interesting in 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. I see it very differently than you, Kyle. I have the Angels, but it's very close. I would say it's the 2nd and 3rd place will come down to 3 games, within 3 games of each other for 2nd and 3rd. The Angels, they're always a team that's hard to predict. Always on paper, they have a team that shows promise. And you think this is the year that we're going to get Mike Trout some more playoff at-bats. However, year after year, this team is just snake-bitten with injuries and starting rotation issues. Is this the year they'll finally be able to put it all together? The Angels made a decent splash by signing Noah Syndergaard to hopefully shore up that rotation a little bit more. But outside of Ohtani, what else do they have pitching-wise? And it's fair to say Ohtani had an amazing season last year, both pitching and at the plate. Is it fair to say there will be some regression to the mean? I feel like it's fair to say if you're not going to get that top-of-the-line production out of Ohtani, you don't really have much outside those two. They signed Lorenzen, who is a utility pitcher and is now going to be asked to fill a spot in the rotation. I think that's shaky at best. I saw him in play as he was part of the Reds, so I got to see him mostly play there. He is interesting as a player. I don't think he's a everyday one of your top 5 or one of your 5 starters. I see the rotation being their biggest question mark, and feel like they needed to get one more pitcher. I feel like that's where they really failed this offseason, is they could have done a better job to address the rotation. There were players available. I really would have liked to see them go get the guy, Robbie Ray. I would have really liked to see them get Robbie Ray. They didn't. I would have really liked them to see them get Gausman. They didn't. This lineup is stacked, though. They have Ohtani's bat and up-and-coming starters in Marsh and Adele, who are going to get significant playtime this year after they just let go of their left fielder, escaping my... What's your left fielder?
Justin Upton.
Thank you. They just let go of Justin Upton, so they're going to get significant playtime.
Future Dodger.
And besides that, Adele has had a really hot spring. So if that can translate, who knows? But if that translates at all, you guys have a really good outfield. If Rendon can stay healthy. I mean, when he was at his peak, he was one of the best bats in the National League. These are all things, though, that are predicated on it all coming together for them. And it just never has. So we always use the past to predict the future. I feel like the bottom line, though, is the rotation for me is not strong enough to compete, especially not for first place. But it's just going to be a toss-up for second place. Mariners, they're young, and I feel like they're going to be exciting. They won a lot of games last year, and I feel like they're going to take that step forward. I feel like it's easier to say that they'll take the step forward more than the Angels will finish in first. And then the Astros. Nobody likes seeing them being competitive. I know for sure I don't. However, this team is just too talented not to be. This team pitched themselves deep into the playoffs despite not having Verlander, which he's supposed to be a key contributor this season. With his absence, though, they had Garcia, who pitched a 1.23 ERA plus in 155 and 2/3 innings, and Valdez, who pitched a 1.32 ERA plus in 205 innings and a third. There's some concern, though, with McCullers' continued issues with his flexor tendon. However, I'm betting on the other 3 being able to give them quality enough starts for their dynamic lineup. Losing Correa does hurt, but they still have key players in Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Yordan Alvarez, and Jose Altuve. Not predicting this team to be a World Series contender, but at this point, I feel like they have a significant better lineup top to bottom than the rest of the division.
So I think there's an obvious thing we got to talk about. Yeah, man, I'm just not buying it.
You're crazy.
So the Mariners. So I just looked it up. So Pythagorean win-loss takes that run differential into account and says what a team should have finished the record-wise in terms of that run differential. The Mariners last year won 90 games. Pythagorean win-loss has them at 76 wins. So their run differential says they are a bad ball club. And granted, you can only put so much stock into that. But then you look over at the next segment over on Baseball Reference, and you look at their luck factor of 14. significantly higher than anybody else in the league. This team had a lot go their way last year. And yeah, they have a ton of talent. They made the right moves, bringing in Jesse Winker and Robbie Ray. Bringing up Julio Rodriguez is going to be incredible. That guy is going to be a superstar and somebody that I'm going to be terrified as an Angels fan to watch for the next couple of years. But I think even if the Mariners improve on the margins, there was so much that went their way last year. You talk about regression to the mean with Shohei Ohtani. The Mariners, by all of the numbers, what we're looking at, their underlying stuff, they should regress next year, regardless of the fact that on paper they got better. The Astros, I just don't buy the fact that Justin Verlander, 39, coming off of Tommy John, is going to be enough to be an ace for that rotation. And sure, they're still a very good ball club, but I don't think there's any reason why two teams can't win 90-plus games in this division. Why can't that be the Angels, and why can't that be the Astros, especially if the Mariners take a significant step back and they fall further towards that 500 mark? There's definitely enough wins to go around for both these teams to be playing late into October. Certainly both these teams making the playoffs. I mean, on paper, the Mariners probably have the highest ceiling. The Astros probably have the strongest roster. And I'm a big analytics guy, but sometimes you just get a feeling. And you talk about, the Angels, it seems like every year it's like, okay, this is going to be the year they stay healthy. Okay, this is going to be the year that this happens and this and that. This really does feel like the year. Mike Trout is the best player in baseball. Anthony Rendon had a bad year last year, but he was injured the whole season, kind of write it off. Those two guys are going to carry the offense. I think if Noah Syndergaard can give them 160 innings at like a 3.8 to 4.0 ERA, Patrick Sandoval comes in and continues his development from last season. There's just a lot to like about this ball club that when you look below the surface and kind of get beyond the fact like, oh, haha, the Angels, they're always hurt. They have no pitching. If you really take a deep look at this roster, they have high-level talent in the lineup. They have an incredible bullpen. They're ranked the third best bullpen in baseball by MLB.com. And then they also have a very strong rotation when you actually look at what's going on. Look at a guy like Reed Detmers, the spring he's had. Noah Syndergaard has looked strong as well. Patrick Sandoval actually looks better in the spring and in the small sample that I've watched than I did when I watched him on the mound last year. And then Shohei Ohtani this spring has just been unbelievable. And then you talk about Joe Adell has stepped up this spring. He's actually made a few swing changes, at least from what I can see, that really look like he's simplified his approach, and that's going to hopefully clean up a lot of the swing and miss and a lot of the miss-hit balls. If he takes a step forward, you can add him in the 6th spot in this lineup. Joe Adell in the 6th spot, if he takes a step forward, is going to be massive for them. And they got a guy like Brandon Marsh and David Fletcher. I mean, those guys can play too. I just think there's so much with this roster that when you take the reputation that precedes the Angels out of the equation, this is a good ball club. On paper, if they stay healthy, they could easily win 90-plus games and be fighting for the division lead, even a wild card spot if the Astros do overtake them, because it's obviously a possibility. They have the track record. They have the better organization. But I don't know. Sometimes you just get a feeling, and it's not the fan in me. It's a genuine belief. This really feels like it could be the Angels' year. I'm curious. I don't know, man. Like,
Best of luck.
Obviously, it's a lot of stuff has to go right, but why not? A lot of stuff has to go right for the Astros and Mariners too. If they can go right for them, it can go right for the Angels.
I'm a little bit more bearish on their rotation than you are. You seem to be very bullish on their rotation. I feel like a lot has to go right for the rotation to be make a difference for them. And to me, baseball comes down to starting pitching. And I just feel like they just didn't do enough. They needed that top of the line guy Gausman or Robbie Ray, that they just didn't get. And they're relying too heavily on Ohtani, which he's pitching last season. I think he wasn't on the standard 5-day rest.
No, they're doing a 6-man rotation this year as well.
So you see Ohtani, I mean, that takes away Ohtani's effectiveness a little bit more, because he's not going to be your standard every 5 days. He's going to be in the lineup giving you that production. It's just too much reliance on Ohtani for me. Syndergaard is a toss-up for me. And then I'm a little bit bearish on the rest of the rotation. And that's what it comes down to, is starting pitching for me.
So I think you're right. I think I am definitely more bullish on the Angels rotation than you. But when I look and I click on Patrick Sandoval and his Fangraphs page, I look at a guy and I see let me get these numbers right. I want to make sure. I got a 24-year-old in 87 innings with a 3.62 ERA. Reed Detmers, obviously no MLB experience. Sometimes you look at prospects and you just have a feeling. He has the best curveball in the minor leagues. He might have the best pitch in the minor leagues with that curveball. When he's been on the mound in spring training, guys have no chance against him. Shohei Ohtani is going to throw 150 innings and have a 3.3 ERA. So and then Noah Syndergaard, we got to talk about him. So one by one, is Shohei Ohtani capable of having a 3.3 ERA season?
Yep.
Is Noah Syndergaard capable of bouncing back and vastly overperforming the $21 million that the Angels gave him this year? Is he capable of that?
Is he capable? Yes.
Is he going to stay healthy?
That's another
No.
question. But that's a question for every pitching staff. There's nothing that says 4 Astros pitchers won't blow their elbows out. Injuries aren't something that you can factor in too heavily, even with a team like the Angels who have had so many issues in the past, but it's all new guys. Moving forward, Michael Lorenzen, is he capable of being kind of a swing guy, goes in and out of the rotation, has some success? Not saying he's going to have a 3.5 ERA, but, a 4.4, strikes out a decent amount of guys, moving between the bullpen and the rotation. That's a valuable guy. I think he's more than capable of that. The guy's got incredible stuff.
He does, but I feel like his role has always been just like I don't feel like he's a big enough difference maker for you guys. Like he's going to fill in for you guys and get the job done. But to count on him providing you much more than that is, I feel like, a stretch.
Sure, I'll rephrase the question. If Ohtani, Sandoval, Syndergaard, and Detmers perform to their expectations or slightly above them, with the lineup the Angels have and the bullpen the Angels have, is this team capable of winning the division?
Yes.
No.
It absolutely
No.
is.
Yeah.
You best case scenario, I see you guys.
Two different. I see what you're saying, but you're not quite understanding what he's saying. They are fully capable.
Capable.
But the
Likely
the chances of those stars aligning
Exactly.
is very unlikely.
See, I don't agree with that. If Syndergaard's healthy, he's going to be dominant. That's just who he is. Sandoval has looked amazing this spring. There's no sign from him that he's going to get figured out. He's a lefty with an unbelievable changeup, throws decently hard enough, has 3 pitches. Shohei Ohtani, he's an anomaly. I don't think we really need to dig too much into that. And then Reed Detmers, I just personally really believe in that guy. I think if those 4 dudes perform to what they're capable of doing, and I think that's more than reasonable to assume that can happen, I think this team's going to be really, really good. I think that's going to be what it comes down to. If one of these guys or 2 of these guys, certainly, if it don't live up to expectations, they're dead in the water. They'll finish in 3rd or 4th place, even if they fall far enough the Rangers improve. But if all this stuff goes right, and they're going to win the division. They have the highest ceiling outside of maybe the Mariners. If all of the prospects come up and hit and pitch to what they're capable of, I think they have the highest realistic ceiling.
The one problem is with the Angels, though, if one thing happens to not go right, the whole boat's going to sink. That's, I think, what separates other teams like the Astros and the Mariners, just specifically speaking within the division. If Syndergaard goes out for some time with an arm, or if, say, Rendon gets the injury bug again, if just one thing goes down with these Angels, it's the whole ship sinks, and there goes your dreams for winning the division. Now, I understand what you're saying. The team on paper has an incredible roster, yes, but things have to happen for those stars to align, and the Astros are, until they prove me wrong, they're the top dog in that division.
Kyle, you think 90 wins get you first place?
Insane.
No.
I don't
Okay,
think,
that's my ceiling for the Angels is 90, even 90 and floor of 80.
I'll give you 85.
I think you're discounting how bad the bottom part of the division is going to be.
But
they're gonna play 38 games against the A's and the Rangers this year. They should win. If you look at what the Angels did last year, they lost to good teams. If they were over 500, the Angels lost. If their team they were playing was under 500, they won. That's just who they were. Those teams are going to be under 500. The Angels are probably going to win 75% of those games. That's going to be 30 wins. Right off the bat.
No doubt. I feel like their lineup is very stacked. I feel like their outfield is very good, and if their young players and Marsh and Adele take those steps, very good offense. You're going to have Rendon. Hopefully he can come through for you guys. And then you got a good catcher, and then you have an up-and-coming first baseman. So I feel like the offense, just like always, your offense is not the issue for me. It's starting pitching.
I guess at the end of the day, it's just going to be, do these guys step up? Do these guys perform? And that's going to be the story of this entire division. It's going to be which of these teams has enough balls roll their way, doesn't get the bad bounce in October on a ground ball to somebody. I think it's going to be close between the Angels and the Astros. I think they're a tick above the Mariners just because I think a lot of the underlying stuff is a little bit disappointing for them. But who knows, man? We're doing the hardest thing in sports right now, trying to pick these divisions. So to wrap up our AL preview, we're going to go around the horn and we're going to pick our AL MVP, our AL Cy Young, and pick the team that we think is going to come out of the AL pennant and advance to the World Series. And I'm going to go ahead and start with my AL MVP, Mike Trout. I think until he's fallen off a cliff, until he moves out of center field, I just don't see any reason why you can pick against Mike Trout on a yearly basis. The emergence of Shohei Ohtani is certainly going to make things interesting, but if you look around the league, Mike Trout is still the best baseball player in the world. He's the best baseball player since Barry Bonds stepped foot on the field for the Giants for the last time. So it's hard for me to pick against him at this point until somebody dethrones him.
MVP, I'm going to have to go with Vladdy Jr. Kid's got the stuff. He can bang with the whole league. I think he's going to come out this year and really light it up. Excited to see him play. That's my MVP.
My AL MVP is going to be Luis Robert. I think the White Sox are going to have a really good year, and I think he's going to be a huge contributor. And I think he's going to really have his coming out party this year and show their league like, hey, I'm Luis Robert, and I have arrived, and this is my league to go for the next decade.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. This could be the year that Trout's dethroned. If Robert wins that MVP, that certainly would be kind of that passing of the torch. For the AL Cy Young, moving over to that, I have Garrett Cole. I think this is a guy who's the best pitcher in the American League, and like I said with Trout, until somebody dethrones you as the best player in your league at your position, whether you're talking about a position player for MVP or a pitcher for Cy Young, it's hard for me to pick against you. And Garrett Cole, I think he's coming into this season with a little something to prove after the wild card game he pitched in last year, getting shelled a little bit by the Red Sox. I think he's going to come out and pitch angry and pitch very well, and he's going to be the shining spot on the Yankees, who I think are going to be pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, but just to give the listener something different, I'll go ahead and take Giolito. I think he's going to be the AL Cy Young winner. Dude's going to bring it this year with a team that I think could go all the way as well. So yeah, that's my pick.
My Cy Young for the AL, I'm going to pick Kevin Gausman for the Blue Jays, and I think he's going to be a real difference maker. That's going to be a real tough division, so I feel like his dominance is going to be really put on display against really elite hitters in a very tight division. So there are going to be a lot of eyes on Kevin Gausman if he locks up that number one role and he's able to shut down that division.
And Kevin Gausman pitches for the team that I think is going to be going and representing the American League in the World Series. I think the Toronto Blue Jays, on paper, are the best team in the American League. And what did I just say about the MVP and the Cy Young? At the beginning of the year, if I can look and say this is the best at whatever it is, that's what I'm going to roll with for whatever it is. So I think the Toronto Blue Jays won 90 games last year, very barely missed the playoffs, and they got much stronger bringing in Gausman, re-signing Barrios to that extension, bringing Kikuchi, who knows what he's going to be, bringing in Chapman to pair with those guys in the lineup, Springer, Vladdy, Bo, Teoscar Hernandez. There's just so much to like about this team. The bullpen is kind of the question mark, but I don't think they have enough bad going for them that's going to stop them. I would say the White Sox are the biggest threat for them.
Interesting you say that. The team in the AL that I have winning the pennant is the Chicago White Sox. I think they got something to prove this year. They made some nice additions, and I'm excited to see them play. It will be interesting to see. I was going in until this morning, actually, that the AL pennant would come out of the East. But, I was going over what the White Sox have and who they are as a team this year. And I think, it might not be the prettiest, but I think they are the team that can get it done when they need to.
I'm actually going to agree with Brandon here. And my pick for the AL representation in the World Series is going to be the Chicago White Sox. Similar to what you think about the Blue Jays having the best roster top to bottom, I think it's the White Sox. And I think if you look at their lineup is just more complete. And I think the holes that they might have, I talked about it kind of earlier, they need some help on the left side of the plate. They need a power hitting left side of the plate guy. And maybe they need some bullpen help. But maybe they go grab a number one starter at the deadline too. That would really be nice. But I feel like they're only a couple pieces away. from really being that top dog. And I feel like there could be a case that you could make that the White Sox are the best team in baseball, the most complete. So yeah, that would be my pick.
Well, you guys were certainly in agreement on a lot of these things. I think it was two divisions. You guys picked the exact same, and then also picking the same World Series team. Certainly interesting.
Well, I don't know how many people would have picked the Angels to win the AL West, but
man.
shout out to you.
It's certainly going out on a limb, but I mean, I think as a fan, I kind of have to show that loyalty. But it's really, and I mean this sincerely, I'll be the first person to admit when I'm being a homer in any sport. I pride myself on understanding what's going on with the analytics for all these teams, what are guys' Savant pages looking like, their Fangraphs pages. I believe in this. This is not, I'm an Angels fan. I think the Angels are going to win the division. Like I was saying when I was 15 years old and they were bad. This really does feel like a team that can take that step. There were two teams this year that I really feel in my gut are going to take a step forward. That's the Royals and that's the Angels. There's data that tells me this could happen, and I'm choosing to buy into it because I truly do believe in it. But we've obviously talked a lot about that. We want to thank everybody at home for tuning in, bringing us into your home, welcoming us, and just tuning in and listening. We appreciate you guys. Every week, we're going to have another episode previewing the National League coming out tomorrow. So until then, fellas, we will see you guys.
Thank you.